Welcome to Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur Podcast. Join the podcast mogul Phil Better as he interviews successful entrepreneurs that make their living in the digital world. Now, let's join your host, Phil Better, and his special guest today on Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur Podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm, of course, your host with the most, Phil Better. And today I'm very, very excited. As you know, I love talking to entrepreneurs from all over the world, different ages, because you guys are the entrepreneurs that need to learn from my experts. So today's guest actually went from 0 to 7 figures net worth starting at age 50. So they started in the second half of their life, and they did it thanks to real estate investing. Through her coaching courses, podcast, books, she loves sharing what she's learned in that time to help other women exceed their expectations and create a legacy, because that's what it's all about, ladies and gentlemen. So please put your hands together for our guest, Christine McCarron. Christine, thank you so much for being here.
Phil, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to talk to you today.
Oh, I'm excited. So I gave you a very brief overview of your history. You started when you were 50, you went from 0 to 7 figures, which I'm sorry, is always impressive to anybody when they start, when you're able to do that. But I want to know a bit more about you. So how about you give us a little bit pre-50, and then once we catch up to the 50, we'll jump into the next half. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, well, the pre-50, like, why did it take me till I was 50 to actually do something exciting? I had tried on a lot of different hats during that time, both the corporate hat, right, trying to be a good little corporate citizen and do what I was told.
Love those.
As you know, right, good entrepreneurs are basically unemployable, right?
Very true.
So I tried that on, and met some nice people, had some fun, but for the most part, felt that it was not a good match for me. And then I was finishing up a job. I had an overseas assignment for 2 years, and when it was coming to an end, I was like, should I stay here? Should I go back? And my neighbor said, why don't you just quit? And because she said, it's hard for you to figure out what you want to do when you're already doing something else. So I said, oh, that's a great idea. So I quit, and I was like, okay, now what am I going to do? And nothing like dived into my brain. So I, through a series of adventures and misadventures, I ended up starting an import company. And that was my first real entrepreneurial endeavor. And because I just jumped in with no training, no information, no nothing, I failed, but it took a long time. It took 6 years to fail. So in that time,
that's a very slow fail. I have to say that I'm in a press. It's usually people say it takes 5 years for a business to be able to succeed. You made it to the 6th year, and then all of a sudden it went, poof.
Yeah, well, it was just because I was putting all my savings into it. If I would have just traveled for those 6 years, it would have been probably cheaper. But yeah, at that point, my savings were gone. So I was like, oh, crap, what am I going to do now? So I ran into a friend who had just passed a real estate exam. And I said, oh, I want to do that. And so I got my real estate license and started doing rentals, actually. And was just doing that. Doing rentals as a 40-something-year-old person is it's something you do when you're in high school or college, rather. It's just you're taking young people, mostly college students, to these hovels, right, that are loaded with takeout containers and roaches and just really nasty places. It's not when you think about real estate agent, right? You're going to think this person showing somebody the beautiful teak floor. This is not like that at all.
Yeah.
But then I turned 50, and I was like, oh my God, you're a loser. You're like, I was living in a house with 5 other people. So this guy who was an entrepreneur, who was 25 years old, had bought a house, a 2-family house. One of the units had 4 bedrooms. I had one of the bedrooms, and then there were 2 couples and another single person living there. That's like a dorm, right? It's like a dorm. And I'm just like, oh my God, I'm a complete loser. I'm 50 years old. I'm, showing college students places to live, and I'm living like a college student, right? This is not cool. And I just felt so you just wasted 50 years, and now you're too old to do anything else, and you're a complete loser. And that's
a little harsh on yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. It was not pretty. And so I was just like that. I'm like, oh God. So now what am I going to do? I'm just going to be and so 3 weeks later, 3 weeks after my 50th birthday, which was that very depressing incident, I walk into my aunt's 100th birthday party. And there she is, like, she's a superstar. I mean, at 100, you would have thought she was in her 70s. She's got a tiara. She's got this, like,
Sad.
sash they gave her that says 100th birthday. And she's just sitting there. She knows everyone's name, everyone's birthday. She was so just smart and alert and just amazing. And I looked at her and I was like, oh my God, I have 50 more years. You know what I mean? Like, if this is what 100 looks like, I can do this thing, right? And so that just woke me up, basically. It woke me up and I just started like, okay, what can I do? What do I need to do? What's the best way to like start to make money, and how can I do some things, and what are some skills I already have? And so that's where I went from, like, really, I mean, not even zero, like in debt and a loser.
Wow. I wouldn't say a loser, because you're reconnecting. I think, like, something I've learned, and I'm happy that I learned it so quote unquote young. I'm 37, 38. Oh God, I don't even know how old I am. I'm not 40 yet. That's what I know. But with my nephew, I feel like I reconnected with my inner child. So I feel like even though you were looking at yourself as a loser, living with these people who are half your age, if you will, you got to reconnect with you when you were starting your business journey, when we were young and full of like, we can do anything. And then we realized the real world is like, no, you can't. You have to play by our rules. Yeah. But thanks to the entrepreneurial world, we're able to do that. And you were able to see that even at 50, like you said, whoa, 100-year-old aunt who's like busting moves left, right, and center. And you're like, why do I feel older than a 100-year-old, you know?
Yeah, it's
I love
true.
it.
It's true. I have her to thank for that. And she ended up living to 105. So every year I'd say, I've still got 50 years. I've still got 50 years.
Oh my God. I bet she was just the life of every party she was at.
She was a firecracker. She really was a firecracker. I can
only imagine. If she sparked you, she's obviously someone that everybody needs in their life. And I'm pretty sure you're hitting that goal. When you hit to 100, you'll be a 70-year-old, 100-year-old, or however that sentence should work. So you got reinvigorated, you started hustling a bit more, still doing the rentals, or did you decide to move off of something to something else?
Well, I started doing sales, and it's interesting because I got some pushback from the broker. He's like, we have this niche, we do rentals, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, sales is where the money is. That's what I'm going to start doing. So I with no help from the office, I started getting my own sales clients. And then obviously you get bigger checks. I mean, you can hustle a lot as a rental agent, but it's smaller denominations. And when you get a big check, it's easier to invest and easier to pay your bills.
You're like, oh, cool. I can eat and pay bills this time. Yay! Those big paychecks are lifesavers. And then how long did it take you to go from, hey, I'm surviving, quote unquote, I don't think you're surviving, you're thriving, to where you're like, oh, okay, I can breathe. I can now move on to the next stage of this journey that I'm on. Like, how long did that take for you?
It took about 2 years, because the first thing that actually not even that long, but the first thing that I knew I needed to do was to improve my credit. So I, really set to work on, paying off all my bills and, getting everything to be nice and clean and pretty. And then I started looking for real estate to invest in. And so, so let me think. That was, so about two years by time it was all said and done. And I actually found some people to invest with me. I found a great piece of property to invest in, and the market was terrible. So it was a great time to buy. Yeah. And then I just, fixed that one up, sold that, bought 2 more, sold that, you know what I mean? And just started to
create the empire.
Yeah, exactly. And take over the world. Yeah, exactly.
Wow, everyone's dream to rule the world or rule the. No. I like to say that we rule our own little empires. Like, it could be just our house, but it's still our empire. It's our castle, our domain.
Right.
So regardless of how it is, you're still a queen running your empire. Now you're transitioning from doing all that hustle and bustle to, I want to help the next generation, the next group of people, the next women. Because I think we need a lot more women in this workforce, a lot more entrepreneurial women, because you guys bring in some great ideas. Not just like designing stuff and that, but like the way you look at everything is so different. And that's why I love talking with female entrepreneurs, because you guys just have a different view of things. Why did you want to focus on the female entrepreneurs in regards to your coaching in that?
I feel like there is much more of a temptation and much more of a, especially during, in my sort of generation, for women to put their own lives on hold once they start having kids.
Mm-hmm.
And then the kids are gone, and sometimes also the husband's gone, and then you're just like sitting there going, oh, so now I'm like too old to do anything else, and I'm just going to have to wait around until I retire, and with this job I hate or whatever that is below your potential because it had hours that allowed you to pick the kids up from there or whatever, and things like that. So I feel like there is that empty nest syndrome that I don't think men particularly have. But and the opportunity for women to reconnect with some of the energy and excitement and vitality that they had, maybe just out of college or just out of when they were younger. And even if they don't end up doing what they had thought of doing as a young person, just the idea that they could reinvent themselves, and it isn't too late to start a business, to do some type of a passion project. I actually was speaking to someone yesterday. She's she's in her 60s, and she's in the middle of getting ordained as a Lutheran minister, which is something that she had always wanted to do, that she put on hold when she became pregnant. And it's a very common story.
Oh my God. Yeah. And it obviously it is, like, looking at my mother, like, she put her life on hold. She had a great career in, administration for a hospital, had the kids, put it on hold. And once the kids got old enough, she could technically go back to work, but she still had the handcuffs because of the kids. But now obviously she's grandma mode, and she's loving every moment of it with the nephews and that. So yeah, what, like, this 60-year-old soon to be ordained minister, that's one of the, I think that's awesome, because like the wisdom that she can bring into her teachings, coalescing with the teachings of the book, all of that's amazing. What other kind of wins do you see? Have you already had with your with some of your coaching clients, or some of the people that you were not necessarily coaching but were helping before you decided, hey, I'm going to go into this coaching world?
Yeah. The difference between, I'm going to answer your question in 1 second, but the difference between talking to a 60-year-old who has reignited with that excitement and passion, like she's talking at like a million miles an hour. She's all excited. Oh, and then we do it, and we're doing this, and we've sold our house, and we, what I mean? Like, it's just there's so much life there. And then you talk to someone else who's just like, yeah, well, we're the ladies who lunch, we go play golf, and then we, maybe we'll go to the movies or whatever. I'm like, it's just a whole different life, right? So one of the people who I talked to, who I coached, she was in a marriage that she hated, basically she'd come home from the gym, go in the bedroom and just sit there. But she felt trapped in the relationship because she wasn't making enough money. She had like a part-time job and was just not in any way, shape, or form happy. And we started talking about what, her skill set was, because we all have this temptation to think that everybody else can do everything we can do, plus all the stuff they can do, right? You don't realize how, special you are, how gifted you are. And so we started to talk about, and one thing that was very obvious was that she was bilingual. And I said, well, you're bilingual. Have you ever thought of doing anything like that? She goes, well, I did have this idea of, creating some courses that would help people to learn the specific language of their profession. So, right, you go to like a doctor, a nurse, someone who works in healthcare, they don't need to know how to say everything, but they need to understand how people are feeling, right? They need to understand that particular, grammatical group that only that is going to allow them to do their job really well with people from different languages. And so I said, oh my man, that's a fantastic idea. It's like $1 million idea right there to me, right? You can start with different professions, then you can add different languages. I mean, there's just so much you can do there. It's a fantastic idea. So I said, what's holding you back? Like, how can we do this? And anyway, long story short, she's doing it now, which is like so exciting, right? It's so exciting.
It's awesome. Like,
yeah, it's awesome. It's fantastic, right? She started with healthcare, and then, you can move on to other types of professions like that. And, she's talking about now adding different languages, which I'm like, yes.
That's awesome. Like, I know I live in Montreal, so we have to be bilingual. You live in Montreal, you have to be bilingual. You need to know the French as well as the English.
Right.
And as much as I am French, I don't think I'm that French, right? But I did, my ancestors are probably rolling in their grave right now with that statement. But whenever I speak in French, I feel always so self-confident. But whenever I was talking about my previous job where I was working in finance, I knew all the lingo. I felt confident as like, oh, you want to talk finance? Boom. I'm like Johnny on the spot, like it was my natural language. But put me out in the wild and having conversations, I am scared, like head in the sand. Like that's what I'm doing. I'm ostrich head in the sand, not I don't see anything. I don't know what you're talking about. So hearing that she's like saying, hey, you don't need to know how to speak the full language. Just be able to communicate the professional things so that the people understand and you can understand them. I think that's genius because it just saves because now I feel comfortable as a patient coming in with the person at least knows at least some of the language so we can have that communication. Right. So I think that's genius. And it's not $1 million idea. That's $1 billion idea. Because if Babbel's doing it and you have all these translating, for sure she can do it. And especially if she focuses on the professionals, whew, she'll crush it. That's an amazing story. I want to hear a win that you got. Like what is a personal win that you just hold up, like whenever you're getting those dark days, because we all have them. We've all had those dark days where we don't think we're good enough, even though we've had success after success. What is one memory that is your candle in the wind, let's say?
Well, it's that. I mean, I feel successful when I think of like clients who I've helped to become real estate investors. And now they're like, hey, we're taking a vacation again. We're about, I'll think of one person in particular. She was in her 50s when we met. I helped her to buy a 3-family, home. And she had a great time going through each unit, fixing it up, got it all positive cash flow. She's got a ton of equity in there now. She's driving a Mercedes and she's able to spend her time, taking care of her grandson, who doesn't live in the same, who lives in Florida when her places are in Massachusetts. So she is financing her lifestyle with a beautiful passive income stream that just came from just getting started real estate investing, which I love people to have that buffer, right? Mm-hmm. To have a passive income stream while they're trying to do something else.
It's freaking great. Like that passive, just like it gives you that that breathing room. Like, okay, the bills are paid. Cool. I don't have to worry about stuff. I can like focus on the wants instead of the needs. Like I need to have shelter. Not that I want shelter. I need it to survive. So like having your needs met and now you're just looking to play with your wants. Oh, that's great. Now you have a podcast. And as a podcaster, I love talking to people with podcasts. Who would have thought it, right?
Right.
What is your podcast about?
So I actually have two. Women Creating Wealth is just for women in real estate investing. That's all we talk about. But the other one is Get Your Fill, Financial Independence and Long Life, which I started because I'm too old for FIRE, right? So there's no big, you can't be too excited about someone who's retiring at 60, right? So there's no retiring early for me. So I said, well, I'll just live a long time. So that, and of course my aunt was the inspiration for that. So and then we talked to all kinds of people who talk about how to make your money work, positive energy, and all kinds of things that have to do with having a long, happy, healthy life.
I love that. How did you come up with the ideas? Like which podcast was the first one?
Get Your Fill.
Get Your Fill.
Yeah.
And how did you come up with the idea of Get Your Fill? And personally, as a Phil, I love the name. I'm disappointed I didn't come up with that. So there's a little bit of bitterness towards you now. And I don't know if I'm going to listen to the podcast because it's still such a great name. But how did you come up with the idea? And talk to me about why you decided to start this podcast.
I do a lot of kind of following the path. One thing leads to another thing, leads to another thing. And so it all started when I wanted to start doing public speaking. And then I went to a seminar, like a trade show kind of thing for speakers. And they had this whole podcast were some of the vendors. And I was like, oh, podcast, that's kind of interesting. And then I thought, well, what would I talk about? And then it just all just kind of it's sort of simplistic, but it just sort of came to me that, the
Gotcha.
idea of doing it. And, podcasts are so fantastic because you meet such great, amazing, fun people, and you're just learning from them for the hour or whatever amount of time that you are talking with them. And it's such a great venue.
I really wish you didn't reveal that super secret about how it's
It's so selfish.
it is. It's the one secret I don't like telling publicly. Like I'll tell everybody one-on-one, but announcing it, like podcasting is like the super, like you get a masterclass every time you talk, because I get to ask you questions that if I was watching you on a Zoom webinar that I wouldn't be able to ask you. And now I got you one-on-one. Instead of paying you hundreds of thousands of dollars, I get free content, and I get to ask you all these super important questions, especially when it's in your niche. Like I'm a digital entrepreneur. I love learning about marketing. I love learning about how other people are making money. So it's all just populating in here. And when I talk with someone, I can sound even bigger and smarter because I'm like, oh, you can do real estate investing. You should check out this podcast. It's actually really good. I interviewed them. Here's the interview. Like, it's amazing. Who has been one of your surprise guests, like a guest either on Getting Your Fill or your real estate one, that you were like, wow, I did not think I would be able to get either a caliber of this guest, or this guest just surprised me?
So, who popped into my head when you asked me that? And it's going to take me a second even to remember her name, because it was a couple of years ago that I talked to her. But she comes across as a real, I don't want to say like a valley girl, but she comes across as like somebody who's just sort of like, only concerned about her appearance. And, and her name is, oh crap. It's going to, I'll look her up.
At the end of the episode, you'll be saying her name like constantly,
yeah, exactly.
That's how it works. But yeah. So she was someone that you didn't expect to have on your show.
Yeah, I mean, somebody recommended her to me, and I said, "Oh, yeah, okay." And I did some research, and she does like permanent makeup. So she does like tattooing, basically, of eyebrows and stuff like that. And I was like, okay, whatever. But then when we started talking, I mean, she's so deep. She was so deep. She's from the Philippines. They came over with absolutely nothing. And that, just talking about how her dad used to pull tools out of the trash and shine them up and sell them, like fix them and sell them, and like that entrepreneurial bend, and how she started, in this business and just took off became like an Instagram superstar. And now she's like the authority. If I ask anybody who does this kind of permanent makeup, they've all heard of her. Wow. And she's just, and she was so smart, just so smart. And nice. And I just loved her. I was like,
if that's not the American dream, I don't know what is. Coming over from a country with nothing in your pockets, hustling to becoming the authority in your niche. That is the American dream, 100%. And I think people forget about, like, that's what it used. Like our ancestors, like our grandparents and that, when they first came over, whenever they came over, they had to hustle. And now you got the, oh my God, I love that. I love that for you. Where do you see your podcast going? Either one. Do you have a goal, or you're just like, I'm just enjoy talking with the people?
Somebody actually suggested to me yesterday that I do because I'm actually going into my 5th season of Get Your Fill. And so they said, oh, you should take each year, like the highlights, and do sort of like a book or a highlight reel or some type of a thing that bringing out like some really great things. Like, what did I learn from this year's episodes or whatever? And I thought, that would actually be kind of fun, because I'd be going, Sheila Bella is her name.
Sheila Bella. There we go.
Yeah. I'd be going back to the different episodes. I'd get to re-listen to them, remind myself of the wisdom that they had. I think that's a really good, fun idea. But I just want more people to benefit from, right, the great guests that I've had, and for women creating wealth. I mean, I have some online courses and stuff that go along with that, but I really want women to understand that they can become real estate investors, and the amazing freedom that goes along with that.
I love that. I love specifically going after the females and the older females, younger females, because we need more females in the entrepreneurial space, providing that balance to the male-driven, go, 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 just smooth sailing. Something that I think more people need to take in. That's just like that relaxing nature, calm. Like it doesn't have to be
I
hustle,
don't know how
hustle.
calm I am, though. I don't know if you would really.
You're probably way more. I'm probably more calm than you, but like I feel like no, it's like like the nurturing effect. Like yes, women can go hardcore fast, but they understand where the lines are. Whereas men just will continue going off the cliff. That's what I feel. Like men will just like, oh, there's the goal. We'll just run. And we'll just run without consequence because we're like a robot. We'll just run. And women are like, wait, there's a hole. We need to slow down. But anyways, I want to go back. We're at 25 minutes here. I'm having a great time chatting with you. I'm learning so much. I'm eager to ask you so many other questions. So I'm going to be inviting you back. So don't worry about that. You'll get a request to come back. But I want to go to your 10-year-old self. Boom, snap my fingers. We're back to your 10-year-old self. You have one piece of advice to give your 10-year-old self to spark them so they don't maybe wait till they're 50 to start their journey. What kind of advice would you give yourself?
So, Earl Nightingale, and he's got the strangest secret. And he says, why? So there's 100% of the people, and we're all trying to conform with that 95% who ultimately are not the successful ones. And I would tell my 10-year-old self, don't, forget trying to fit in with everybody. Forget trying to be part of the pack and trying to be a conformist. Like go after that. Be that 1%, right? Be that, or even that 5% of people who are going to succeed, who are going to be different, who are going to think different, and just embrace that quality in yourself. Because I spent a lot of wasted time. I wasted a lot of time trying to fit in with people who I just, can't fit in with, and who ultimately aren't the ones that are going to have extraordinary lives, right? You don't want to have a life that everybody else has.
No one wants to have that. I want to have my own life, experience everything, maybe take adventures from other people's lives, but I want to live them myself. Right. That's great advice. I love that piece of advice. Snapping our finger 10 years in the future now. We're 10 years in the future. What are you doing? Where is Christy?
By then I will have been in every country, even if just for a few days, that I will have spent some time in every country in the world, and of course every state in the union. And I will be finding new ways to enable that, lifestyle of traveling, which I really love. Maybe I'll be leading tours or something, and I will have short-term rentals in some of my favorite countries, hopefully all of my favorite countries by then.
I like that. That's a great goal. Oh, I'm jealous of that goal. I love it. Chrissy, I'm going to jump off stage here. I may have to keep you on my contact to call you up and be like, do you have any places here for me? I'll rent from you. Chrissy, but I'm going to jump off the stage here. I want you to let my audience know where they can follow you, where they can connect with you, where they can listen to your podcasts so that they can get inspired as well and get their fill, if you will. So the floor is yours.
Thanks, Phil. The easiest way, as you probably heard, I have a lot of hats, but chrismccarron.com is an easy place to connect with the majority of the hats that I have at the moment. And from there, you can also email me and say, gee, Chris, I want to talk more to you about coaching. I want to talk more to you about, I want to download a copy of your book, which is a great primer for real estate people interested in real estate investing, which is Empower Your Inner Millionaire. There's, I'll allow you to download a copy. I'll give Phil a link so that he can put that in the show notes, and that will maybe get you started. So thank you, Phil.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much. I'm going to download your book because
I
may not be the core audience, but I want to be a millionaire. Who doesn't, right? And always reading from others is always knowledge is power, as they say, and can never have too much knowledge. But as long as you wisdom is putting it into action. So I'll probably be putting it into action. So Christine, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show, sharing your story with us. I'm looking forward to listening to more of your podcast because especially after the name is after me, so I have to listen to it. But I want to thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you, Phil. It's been a real pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much.
And to my audience, as you know, the show notes will have all those links, especially the link to get the book, and so you can download it, read it, and take all the knowledge that Christy has and start implementing in your life, because you have to always remember to invest in yourself.